We are live.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom, family. Ah,
Welcome to the end times. Welcome to the end times,
cool.
y'all.
Hallelujah.
This is breaking news.
Yes, this is man. I'm telling you, it's like day after day, week after week, something
Day
new
after
happens.
day.
Day after day,
You
hour
can't
after
keep
hour.
up.
Yeah,
It used to be the drones, but now it's a little bit more pertinent. Now it's a little bit more evident. It's very clear. I
yeah,
mean, if anybody doesn't get it by now, they may never get it. But, you know, you still need to be on top of these things because it may affect you and it will affect you.
exactly.
I mean, it absolutely will. I don't think there's ever been a time in U.S. history where this has happened. And it happened minutes ago, literally minutes ago.
Yeah, or say hours ago. Not yeah. Let's see both. Oh, we got two videos
It
playing.
literally happened minutes ago because the U.S. Treasury just came out and said it. Now, it actually occurred hours ago, but now they're just now talking about it. Who knows what it could have went down, all this week. Nobody really knows because
Yeah,
the U.S. Treasury and, the Fed, they don't always tell what's going on behind the scenes. So we don't know how long they've known about it, but it is just now hitting the news minutes ago, hours ago. Like, this is breaking news that China has hacked the U.S. Treasury.
and that's deep, y'all. Like, what is going on? Let us know. Let us know in the comments if you think this is a big distraction or is it something way bigger than a distraction? Like, is this really happening, like in real life? And the next couple of days is gonna kind of be what happened with I want to say a couple months ago, where the grid kind of went down.
I forget.
Yeah, I'm telling
I
you guys, there's so
forget.
much stuff that happens. But it was a couple
It
months
was a
ago.
cybersecurity
Yeah,
attack on a.
cybersecurity.
I forget. I'd have to pull up the article. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. But this is what it reminds me of, like, because that affected a lot of businesses, a lot of things. Um, so this could be something like that. Um,
No, it's much worse. There's a reason I'm saying it's much worse because the U.S. Treasury is responsible for printing U.S. dollar.
yeah,
That's who prints the dollar. The U.S. Treasury is of the executive branch of government. I don't know if y'all remember a social studies class where you will learn about the three systems in the government. You have the
mm,
executive, you have the judicial, and then you have another one. But the U.S. Treasury
mm,
is part of the executive branch that literally prints money, is part of the IRS, is responsible for finances. And so when you have this coming out right now, that China has hacked the U.S. Treasury, that's bigger than any hack. That's like the biggest hack that you don't hack anything else.
yeah,
Like if you put yourself in the empathizing with China, Russia, obviously they would want to hack the treasury. Like if you can get the resources and understand some of the contracts that a country has, basically you can collapse them from the inside out.
yeah.
That's the new warfare. You don't
And
have
that's
to
a
have
yeah.
boots on the
I was
ground.
just about to say that's an act of war, and it's right before their New Year. So, um, you really got to think of what's really going on. Got to
This
think
is
of what's
crazy.
really
Let's go
going
to
on.
the
So,
video. This y'all gotta
yeah.
hear how they're talking about it. Remember when we share videos, we really want y'all to listen to the vocabulary they are using, okay? Listen to the vocabulary so you actually understand what's
Mhm.
going on. So, we are going to go to this news right here. This is Fox News live now on Fox, okay? Let's just listen, y'all. Let's see what they're talking about. Let's see what they say happened to the US Treasury, the Fed.
Also want to get to some other top stories that we are following for you right here on Live Now from Fox. And it has to do with a big hack that happened recently, and it was just announced by U.S. Treasury. They say that Chinese hackers stole documents in a major incident, and right now that is being discussed, of course, in different avenues here as Chinese state-sponsored hackers breached the U.S. Treasury Department's computer security guardrails this month and stole documents in what Treasury called a major incident, according to a letter to lawmakers. The hackers compromised third-party cybersecurity service provider Beyond Trust and were able to access unclassified documents there. So a major security breach that we want to continue to talk about right here on Live Now from Vox. And I want to bring in our next guest here this hour to help break down this breach and what it can mean. So this is Nathaniel Bradley with Data Vault Holdings. He is the founder and CEO. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you, Mike.
All right, so let's get right into this for everyone that's watching. You think about, okay, Treasury, big department there, has to do with a lot of, we're talking about the safeguards really of our economy. And with this breach, what does that mean? And what were you thinking when you heard that?
Well, leading into this, there's been a lot of talk about TikTok and its approach with our youth and how they've penetrated they have the number one app in U.S. youth. And now this attack, which is, again, the Treasury is going to have documentation there that gives you insights to American life, almost every aspect. And there's a tremendous threat to our businesses and to our communities when you look at this particular breach, which happened through a third-party source. So Beyond Trust, cybersecurity company that's a third party to the Treasury, has provided a security key that's utilized at workstations. And this is what ultimately it's not revealed to us how that security key got into the possession of these Chinese hackers, but that indeed was the process or the form of attack here was the ability to obtain access to work terminals by using a security key provided by Beyond Trust. So that in addition, to what I was thinking when I heard about the attack was really, the ongoing assault on our data and the use of it by our enemies with respect to understanding every aspect of the United States and how we live, how we operate, what our businesses are involved in. And these insights give, the Chinese government insights into their own communist regime. They are able to adjust and see information that it was proprietary to us and proprietary to our nation. So it is a very concerning threat.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you could.
What y'all think about that? The 16 people in the room. By the way, hit the like button if you have not seen that video, if you're learning something new, if you're thankful to hear of this breaking news for this major incident, because that's a little wild. That's very wild.
Yeah.
That's never happened in history. I just want to make that clear because we have so many people that are still in La La Land. And y'all know we left America for Tanzania in 2020. Now we're in Southeastern Africa in a wonderful, beautiful country. But when we look at 2024, 2025, it's much worse now than it was in 2020. Even though we left in the middle of a pandemic.
Although it don't seem like it, but
right.
It is.
It is. It's a silent worse because I think the average person that's not discerning and maybe does not want to pay attention to the signs of the times, they're going to be flipped over and basically pinned down by what's happening if they have not already been with the super high inflation. We didn't even get to Trump and Elon Musk yet. We're going to get to that later in the video. And then with this new cyber attack, they said earlier, everybody's social security numbers have been stolen. And so when you rely on a Western system like that and you don't have any diversity in East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, you don't have any tribal connections, you don't have like a village you could go to, you don't have, multiple residence permits that you can utilize. This is really the time to think and say, what do I need to sacrifice now? What do I need to give up on now so that I can have success in the future? And by success, I mean like live a regular, enjoyable, thriving lifestyle outside America.
Exactly. Yeah. Like really, you got to think about how, just like you were saying, like what kind of vocabulary they was using. And I was hearing attacks, our enemy. So this seems very familiar. Like it does. So I know it hasn't happened before, but just me hearing it, it's like, what are these people up to? What is America up to? What is China up to? Because just think, if China hack into the Treasury, they probably just gonna see debt. They like, dang, they trillions in debt. But it's way bigger than that, and that's that. I'm just joking around, but it is serious to really think about, because like, you really got to think about it, like, why everything happens to America. Like, everything really happens to America, and it really is a time to ask those questions, like, hey, America's under judgment. Like, whatever happens is happening for a reason, and it has to happen. So um just don't be shocked. You just got to be prepared. Like we always say, just be prepared, and the best preparedness is outside of America.
Yeah. We should also go to this article. Yeah, Liz said, God is great. I'm so grateful to live in Africa. Facts. Yeah, that's literally how it feels when you're looking back on it. You look back at this place that our ancestors were brought to in slavery, and you're like, whoo, thank the Most High we made it out.
Yeah,
Because it just gets worse and worse. It does not get better.
really.
But it's not too late for others to leave. Those of you who are watching and are like, okay, how can I leave? It's actually really simple. Sacrifice whatever you're spending your money on now. Invest in your professional development. Invest in business knowledge, mentorship. Run your online business. Get some type of online business on the side of your brick and mortar if you already have a brick and mortar. If you don't yet, create standard operating procedures around your skills, your gifts, your talents, and offer that in multiple demographics, including North America, and you're going to have loads of freedom. But let's go ahead and get to this article.
Yeah, I was going to say it requires sacrifice too. I know we did a live with Awaken with Mark, and that was a beautiful live. So go check that out if you haven't checked it out. But they were talking about sacrifice, and our people really have to sacrifice for the greater good. Like, you have to, for your greater good. So my advice is really to ask the Most High, like, really truly ask the questions that you do not ask the Most High. That's very pivotal in this time. Like, fast, pray, and really seek what you have to do to get out of judgment. Because if you are in that place, judgment is coming.
It's already there.
It's already there.
It's already there.
So no matter what you are trying to say and stuff, it's already there. Okay. Yeah, let's share this article.
Yes, we're going to read this from the BBC. U.S. Treasury says it was hacked by China in major incident 29 minutes ago. Now, BBC is an international news platform, but I believe it's backed by Western countries, the BBC. So a Chinese state-sponsored hacker broke into the U.S. Treasury Department systems earlier this month. Hold up. This happened earlier in the month. Are they saying that this did not happen within the last week or so? They're saying this happened earlier in the month. They didn't want to let nobody know. They didn't say, hey, y'all, guess what? They wanted to keep it on the download. This is why we tell our audience all the time that you will not even know when an attack happens until after the destruction is already there, because that's how diabolical the American institution mindset is. It's like, we don't really care. We just don't want to cause panic. We just don't really want y'all to know. Y'all don't worry about it. It's almost like treating people as children, like you don't really need to know what's happening. Very dismissive, very just uncaring, very rude. But that's nothing new for America. The West has always been like that. So earlier this month, and they were able to access employee workstations and some unclassified documents. Unclassified means that these were private documents that these officials had. This is what the officials said on Monday. The Treasury Department deemed the breach a major incident after disclosing it via a letter notifying lawmakers to the incident. They didn't get on the phone. They said, we gonna write this down in a letter. Look, read that. And I wonder if that's because they think the phones are tapped. They don't know. This is just me. Like, my mind is going like, okay, you disclosed it in a letter. You didn't pick up the phone. So I'm wondering, you're like, you don't really trust the people around you. You're like, okay, it's like those movies. Like, I trust this one guy in that office over there. Let me write him a letter, slip it over to him. Hey,
Yeah.
what do you think? So I think there's also this big amount of pressure of this crumbling happening from the inside out. I think that's why that it's written in this way, that they're disclosing it via a letter, because maybe it's just me, but typically I would think like an emergency situation, you would just pick up the phone and say, hey, your coworker down the office, or, maybe, in the other state or whatever. But no, they say like they're disclosing this via a letter in the age of technology. That pops out to me. The U.S. agency said it had been working with the FBI and other agencies to investigate the impact of the hack. A spokesman for the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., told BBC News that the accusation was part of a smear attack and made without any factual basis. So China's government is saying, we didn't do that. Y'all tripping.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds.
I don't
Look,
know.
that like earlier I said, man, it sounds very familiar. So keep going.
The Treasury Department said in its letter to lawmakers that the China-based actor was able to override security via a key used by a third-party service provider. The application offers remote technical support to its employees. The compromised third-party service, called Beyond Trust, has been taken offline, officials said. There is no evidence to suggest that the hacker had continued to access the Treasury Department's information since they continued. The department said it's been working with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and third-party forensic investigators to determine the overall impact. Officials said initial investigation suggested that the hack appeared to have been carried out by a China-based advanced persistent threat actor. That's a mouthful.
APT.
A China-based advanced persistent threat actor. Whatever that means. That's code for something, clearly. The higher ups know. I don't know what that's code for. In accordance with the Treasury policy, intrusions attributable to an APT are considered a major cybersecurity incident. So, I don't think the U.S. really plans on doing much about this major cybersecurity incident.
Mm.
I don't think they can. And when we get to the next point in the video, y'all gonna see why. I think the fall of Babylon is happening in such a way that there's just not enough people, and not enough. I don't even know how to word it. There's just not even enough people that are aware of what's going on. There's too many foreign people in office. There's too many hands across, just like in that movie Leave the World Behind, China, Russia, other parts of Eastern Europe, Iran. There's too many players that are already there because you have this nation that's built on immigration and slavery. And so there's no what's the prototype American? The prototype American is the indigenous that everybody killed off. Not everybody, but those Europeans killed off. And so that's like the prototype. But if you're not that prototype indigenous American, then everybody else is an immigrant. But that causes a bit of an issue, because then it's like, for example, when you go into countries like Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana, you look like the people of those countries. But the issue in America is there's no prototype. It's just a mixing bowl. It's a mixed pot of all these people. So it's like, you don't really know who's who, especially if these people have studied America like that. You're like, I can't really tell who's who. There's no prototype American. So it's very hard to, there's no, what is the defense against that? What would be the defense when you have this thing that's been going on that has been prophesied before the foundations of the world? Don't get that twisted. Understand that this is all a part of prophecy that has to happen. And I do want to go to Zechariah 2, because it's so important when people are like, okay, what do we do this? It's like a super, very clear instruction that I want to read. It's Zechariah 2, the first few verses. It's literally the prophet Zechariah. He says, and I lifted up my eyes and looked, and I saw a man with a measuring line in his hand. And I said, where are you going? And he said to me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what's the width and what's the length. And see, the messenger who was speaking to me was going out. And another messenger was coming to him. And he said, run, speak to the young man, saying, Jerusalem is to remain unwalled, because the many men and livestock in it, meaning the Most High is going to increase his people. For I myself am to her, declares Yah, a wall of fire all around. And for esteem, I am in her midst. Oh, and flee from the land of the north, declares Yahuwah. For I scattered you like the four winds of the heavens, declares Yah. O Zion, escape, you who dwell with the daughter of Babel. For thus says Yahuwah of hosts, for the sake of his esteem, he sent me to the nations to plunder you. For he who touches you touches the apple of my eye. So that's what this whole thing is about. No matter what nation it is, who doesn't get it, who does get it, that's what this whole thing is literally about.
Yes.
The Most High will allow it to take place. And he says, I'm going to rebuild Jerusalem. You are going to have loads of children, loads of cattle, loads of riches. I'm going to increase you. Your city has to be unwalled because I'm going to increase you so much. But while I increase you, flee the land of the north and get out of there, because he who touched you, I'm coming after him.
Yes. His promise still stands, but you gotta be obedient. Like just as she just read, like you have to know his promise still stands. Like really, you really got to believe that, and you really got to know that. So if you believe it, get out of the land of the north.
Flee
Like
the
really,
land of the
flee,
north. It's
flee.
up north, North America. Isn't that what the continent is literally called? North America.
Yeah.
If anybody thought that that wasn't the land of the north, you know.
Yeah, and you really got to think. Um, Everything America says and has said, you got to think the opposite of it. Like really, because if you're just listening to what they're saying, that's not a good that's not good to listen to, if you understand what I'm saying. Like especially coming into this truth, you have to everything they taught us in America is pretty much the opposite. So just say, um, what's a good example of I could say something like
9/11.
pretty much that. Yeah,
Everybody don't
that's
know
a
about
yeah
that, but yeah,
that's a good
essentially.
example. Like nine
Yeah.
eleven. If you really know the truth behind 9/11, this is what it seems like to me.
I disagree. I think it seems authentic. I do think it seems authentic, especially when I look at World War One and Two, especially with China. I think if they actually did it, who would admit that? You wouldn't admit that. You just say, no, I didn't do it. That's just what you would say. I think that America in times past has done that and like had like these false flags. But I think the judgment is to the point that it's beyond that now. It's like, no, actually, it's legitimately happening. And I think America will see repercussions and is already seeing repercussions, especially in the stock market. Every stock is down today, which does not happen over Christmas and New Year's like ever. Usually during Christmas and New Year's, the market is flooded with resources because people buy all these presents and do all these things. Everything's down. It's like that's just reality. Like there's a twist that's happening in the atmosphere in America, and it's like a switch that has been flicked that will not flick off. A switch, a movement has shifted that will not change course. A destruction is coming that will rest and abide in the daughter of Babylon because that's what's been prophesied to do. And you know, America in times past, the UK, all these Western nations, they typically, you know, have their different plays, their different circuses. But this time the circus is real. This time they're like, oh, I think they're freaking out behind these offices, honestly. I think even when they talk about, hey, we sent this letter, usually you're just going to get on the phone with the person that's in the other department.
Well,
They're like, I have to sneak this envelope kind of to the side. I don't know who to trust, which I imagine for them is scary, but it's like, you have to get double for your trouble after, you know, you murder and pillage Native Americans for, you know, the first time you saw them, you just set them up and pillage them. So what do you expect to get back?
Yeah, I say this. You know, they always plan things ahead of time, so they could, like you were saying, just a circus and play. Like everything is a lie in a way. Like you really just gotta. I guess that's how I'm seeing it. Where you know, I don't think when they plan stuff 5, 10 years ahead of time, they kind of know what is to come, and they have to kind of tell the truth of was here, but they're not telling the whole truth. So it's just like, man, hmm. That's why me, I always just sit back. I sit back and just, I don't really say nothing until it's there right in people's face. So that's how I'm feeling about the situation.
I
Like
have
I'm
a
just sitting
good
back.
question for you that you made me think of. Which they are you talking about? Because we got a few different people that are at play right now
We
in
talking
the
about day.
institution of America.
But you
Which they you talking about?
what day?
You said they always plan it
Oh,
out like the
day.
circus.
It I think it's more of a root thing, a foundation. Like um, where did America come from? That's how I'm thinking about it. Like, what brought America to the stage?
I think those players aren't really in existence anymore.
I still think they doing something behind the scenes where it's like, okay, what's really going on?
I
I
think it
guess that
depends on the
that
parties.
that's how I feel with when America say stuff. It's just like, okay, what's really going on? Of course, this is on big news and stuff, but it's always something else. It's always something else. It's this could be a big distraction for something else. So that's why in the description we ask, hey, do you think this is a big distraction for something bigger, or do you think this is really going on and this could affect, America internally, externally, all of it. So for me, you already know me. I'm just back here just sitting and just waiting because just from what they've been doing in the past, proving themselves wrong and stuff like that, hey, we will see.
I think there's more parties. I think historically, America has been very white looking, white faced,
Hmm.
typical Western European. They were able to kind of hold that, which we're going to see in the next video, y'all. We're going to see what we're talking about. We're going to see that historically it used to look like that. But now we have a South African native at play that
Hmm.
is basically kind of running things in the Republican Party. People voted Trump but didn't realize they were really voting for another person that is not American, is actually South African and a part of BRICS, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Number two, we have had such an increase again, BRICS. This is not a coincidence. In Indian immigrants, not native indigenous American Indians, not South American Indians, Indian immigrants, aka BRICS. So we have India and South Africa that have very powerful positions, not just in America. This is breaking history because America and the UK used to be historically white European looking places. When you look at the UK, they have an Indian prime minister. When's the first time in history that happened? When you look at America now, we have all of these Indian tech people. No shade, I love Indian people, y'all cool. But it's showing the shift that's happening in the West. When you come from a country like America and you spend time around Western people, white people, you know how much they try to hold on to white supremacy. They really don't like a melanated person to be in there, up in all the mix with them. They don't like to share that power. They like to keep it between themselves and their descendants of Great Britain, their descendants of Germany, the descendants of Belgium. But we have seen a huge shift. That's why I say, who is the they we're talking about? Because we have different parties that are at play here. It used to be their European, Western European white faces that are at play in the UK and the US. That's no longer what it is. You have different BRICS nations that have some power in some of these government institutions. And so, you got a lot of different people here, as is prophesied, where it says that literally Babylon would fall in an hour and all of her lovers would turn. Who are these lovers? Lovers, plural,
Hmm.
multiple nations of people that would be in a position to turn. But even to betray somebody, you have to be in proximity because I can't betray someone that I'm not in proximity to. So these lovers would have to be pretty close in the mix to even be able to betray such a quote unquote successful nation like America and her mother, Great Britain. And that's what we're seeing. That's why there's such this push of stop immigration, stop immigration. On one hand, I think a lot of the European descendants are right that their power is over and some other people are going to hijack it and take over. And that's just how prophecy has been written. Okay. That's just how it's been written. But let's go to this next, because this was breaking news. We were going to talk about this other news right here. Okay. But we had two topics because it's just all falling off the hinges. It's like a railroad collision, y'all.
Okay, I haven't seen this, so you gotta let me know when to stop.
Hayes, we still have 3 weeks until Donald Trump is sworn into his second term. There's no denying that with some genuine political canniness, Trump has cobbled together an unwieldy and in many respects somewhat unlikely political coalition. And that coalition delivered him the first outright popular vote victory for a Republican since George W. Bush in 2004. It's only the second time it has happened since the end of the Cold War. Now Trump has to actually govern. And that is typically when all the internal contradictions in any political coalition rise to the surface. We're not even to inauguration yet, and that factional fighting, I would argue, is bigger and more glaring than almost any other I've ever witnessed in American politics. You're seeing that right now in the battle over immigration, which has been exploding among the MAGA right. Basically, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the tech overlords who appear to be running Trump's second-term agenda, rely on highly skilled immigrants to power their enterprises. Those immigrants come to this country to work with an H-1B visa, which provides terms that are extremely favorable to employers and also an amazing opportunity for the folks coming to work here. Folks basically have to stay at their job in order to stay in the country. If they leave their position, they have 2 months to find a new job or risk getting deported. So you can see why someone like Elon Musk likes them so much. For example, this is not abstract. When Musk bought Twitter and a huge percentage of the staff headed for the exits, Vice News reported on how Twitter employees on visas can't just quit. The other side of the debate over the H-1B visa is the one that folks like Stephen Miller and Stephen Bannon have been pushing for years, that we should restrict, limit, perhaps end all immigration in the U.S., legal and illegal, right? Stuff at the border around asylum, but also H-1B visas. I mean, just listen to the two of them on Bannon's old radio show back in March of 2016. This is before Trump was even the Republican nominee. Take a listen.
And they see these oligarchs down there with 54 private jets, and they're not down there for their health. They're called together by Karl Rove, and it's a Stop Trump movement. And it's a Stop Trump movement because they want unlimited HB1 visas. Isn't the beating heart of this problem right now, the real beating heart of it, of what we got to get sorted here, is not illegal immigration, as horrific as that is, and it's horrific. Don't we have a problem? We've looked the other way on this legal immigration that's kind of overwhelmed the country.
The history of America is that an immigration on period is followed by an immigration off period.
So be very clear there, right? H-1B visas, legal immigration, and immigration off period. Like, they have a pretty clear vision. Miller's going to be the one writing that border bill. So those two factions of the Republican Party with pretty profoundly different views are at each other's throats about what to do with their newfound power. Should they use the legal immigration system to continue supplying Silicon Valley and other industries with highly skilled workers? Or should they apply some new racist immigrant exclusion act, like the Chinese Exclusion Act, to deport all those workers and let Americans take their jobs? In defense of the former argument, that is continuing H-1B visas, Elon Musk spent his Christmas week absolutely melting down the social media platform he owns. He has since deleted many of those posts, including one that replied approvingly to a post calling American-born workers in general a slur, the R word, for being too stupid to be able to do the jobs that workers on H-1B visas were doing. One emblematic post is still up where Musk tells opponents of H-1B visas to F themselves before pledging to go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. Although he seems to underestimate the MAGA diehards hate immigration, his online base of right-wing Twitter trolls quickly turned on him, spurned on by the likes of Bannon, as well as Laura Loomer, the fringe far-right activist who spent much of the fall cozying up to Trump before his campaign stepped in and pushed her aside.
It's not a civil war because they're not tough enough. They're just not.
I don't think that it's acceptable for George Soros, Elon Musk, or Peter Thiel. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle a billionaire is on. I don't think that it's acceptable for billionaires to have this much power and this much access.
On the policy dispute here, and there is a real one, Trump actually took Musk's side on it, coming out in support of H-1B visas in comments to the New York Post. Quote, I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in H-1B. I've used it many times. It's a great program. Now, I have to say, I think Trump might be confused here. I don't think his properties are hiring a ton of, say, like software engineers off H-1B. As the New York Times reports, Trump has been a frequent and longtime user of the similarly named but starkly different H-2B visa program, which is for unskilled workers like gardeners and housekeepers. Of course, you could drive yourself crazy trying to track Trump's position on anything at any given moment. In 2016, of course, he called for, guess what? The H-1B to be banned.
Nobody knows the system better than me. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me. I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers.
Regardless, it was nice of Trump to back his co-president Elon Musk this time. Not that it helped much, as Musk seems to have backed down. He now calls our legal immigration system broken. And in one sense, you know, there's a bunch of weirdos online fighting with each other. You know, it's a day ending in Y. But these people, I mean, the guy who's about to be president, the world's richest man, they're about to be in power. They're going to be making decisions. If this fight was any indication, this fractured coalition is not going to make governing that easy for them when they get in power. McKay Coppin is a staff writer for The Atlantic and author of Romney, A Reckoning. Charlie Dent is a former Republican congressman of Pennsylvania. And they joined.
Y'all like that? That was, you know, Trump is starting to seem like Biden. When Biden would talk and he didn't know what he was talking about. I'm telling you, I'll be trying to tell y'all, Trump, he's the puppet. Y'all, everybody talks about, oh, Africa has puppets, America has puppets, okay? Biden was a puppet, Trump is a puppet. You have these BRICS players behind the scenes that are actually running things. BRICS is already in the White House, y'all. You might as well just admit it. That very rich Indian man that was sitting beside Elon Musk, look, that's BRICS. South Africa, India, boom. They ain't got the hidden Russian spies that's all throughout the country. Boom. Now you're only missing Brazil and China. China just hacked. If BRICS is already in the, like, you might as well just hop on a plane and come to Africa. Because, I mean, at this rate, it's already BRICS Central.
It's very confusing. At first, I was like, man, we about to stop it. And then, you know, we had to watch the whole video in a way because all this stuff is it's happening for a reason, and it's very funny. It's very funny.
Yeah.
So, man, like, what's really going on? Like, this is hilarious. Like, dang, just as the guy was saying, like, you know, he's not even president yet, and then the richest man. So both of them gonna be in power, and it's like it's like our 7-year-old and our 3-year-old, and they just gonna go back and forth, just fighting with each other. So it's like, that's America for you. That's America.
That's the fall of America. Yeah, that's you know, it's just reality, you know. But the thing is, because they're essentially arguing about immigration and, you know, indentured servitude and slaves.
That was funny.
America has always brought slaves and indentured servants. They have always wanted human capital. This is nothing new. Mm-hmm. So from the standpoint of, you know, the South African and the Indian guy, they're like, look, y'all been having slaves all this time. Yeah, y'all love slaves. Y'all took all them folks from Africa, from the Congo, from Benin, from Togo, Ghana, Sierra Leone. We want slaves too. So that's why for us, we're like, you know what? It's time to just leave. Yeah, y'all can have that. Y'all keep that. Y'all can have all that you want.
Really?
Keep it. You know, because the last remnant, now they just want to go home and live a peaceable life outside the circus. It's cool to watch the circus from afar, but can you imagine living in the circus right now with this major incident? China hacks U.S. Treasury. Elon Musk, he's sitting up there. He said they're retarded. He cussing at him on Twitter. I was like, oh, they made him mad.
It's so crazy how Twitter is like one of the major news now, or X. Is one of the major news now. So you can just go to X and And it's people in power that be cussing and stuff like that, where it's like, wow, it's a big circus. It's
And
a
he
big
bought
circus.
it. He's so strategic. I don't want people to lose sight of that. He's so strategic because he bought Twitter about a year or so ago. Obviously, if this is his long-term plan to buy out some puppet, aka Trump, sorry, to buy out some puppet so that he can have power. This man, he's South African. He knows he can't run for president outright. But he's like, shoot, I got money. I could buy this guy out. You got money. I got money. Come on, let's go.
That's what I'm saying. They plan.
He
Look,
bought Twitter out beforehand so he could control the political narrative. Don't lose sight of that.
yeah, they plan stuff years in advance. Years in advance. They have to. They have to. And just think, if you ever work with a developer, you know, that's at least 2 years in advance. And they go to areas where they know that, hey, this area is going to be very developed in the next 5 years. So, you know, you're going to get your return in the next 5 years. So just think about governments and people that's in power like that. They think years in advance.
Yeah,
So
they do.
that's what I know for sure.
Yeah,
Years
sure.
in advance. So I know for us, we're just now getting on the wavelength of thinking years in advance. Just us as a community. So that's why I always say, man, think 5 years in advance. You have to. If you got children, how old your children gonna be? You know, like how old are you gonna be in the next 5 years? In the next 10 years? Like, what is the world? You know, just think back 5 years. Just think back 10 years. What was going on? It's a lot that's changing very fast, and distraction after distraction is happening. So you really gotta be in tune with the times that we in right now, just so you can prepare for the future.
Exactly. And you know, it goes back to what Zechariah 2 said, Jeremiah 50 and 51 says it, Revelations 18, it all says it. What it comes down to is flee the land of the north so you don't be partaker of her sins, her judgment, her confusion, right? It's just confusion because that's what happens before that principality falls. There's going to be confusion. Confusion is like the first step before that downfall, where it has to be all these different players. They're trying to get their cut, get their little part of the system, get this, get that. And the Bible says it clearly, flee the land of the north so you do not be partaker of it. So you're not in the middle of it. So you can just come out unscathed. Like the Bible literally said, the Most High said, Jerusalem should remain unwalled. I will rebuild Jerusalem. I myself am a wall of fire before her, meaning family of Judah, when you go out into these nations, it says, I am a wall of fire before you. You're going to be good because I've designated you as being saved and being good. You don't need to depend on her anymore. That's why in the book of Isaiah and Jeremiah, I think it's mainly Isaiah actually, in the book of Isaiah, he would say, actually, it was also in Jeremiah, I was just reading it. He would say in both the book of Isaiah and Jeremiah, do not return to Egypt, because it represented you wanting to return to captivity. When the Most High said, actually, now's the time of release. I'm freeing you. Come on, go out. Imagine if Abraham would have been like, oh, I'm going back to Babylon. He didn't even let a thought like that cross his mind. Why? Because he knew where the promise was. And the promise was not in Babylon. And the promise is not in America. And the promise is not in the UK. And the promise is not in Germany. And the promise is never going to be in the West.
Yeah. Man, you got to think about isolation is key. And I saw this video from Full Spectrum Survival. And he said something very, very, I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't see
but
it.
It was perfect timing because isolation is key to thrive in these next years to come. So I'm gonna play this little clip real quick, and let me know your response, baby.
Okay.
By the day. Amazon's hidden society has revealed itself. This isn't Jeff Bezos' Amazon. This is the area of the Amazon. They're thriving. They're hidden deep in the Brazilian rainforest. The mysterious Masako people doubled their population. They proved that isolation is probably the ultimate survival strategy. These master survivalists hunt with 3-meter bows and arrows. They protect their territory with thousands of camouflaged spikes. They figured out something that the rest of society hasn't. Despite pressure from logging industries, miners, and traffickers, their uncontacted communities continue to flourish. They keep the modern world mostly at bay, doing very limited amounts of discussion or communication, and they just hold to themselves. It's a real indicator that we need to do the same thing. We have a grim record.
That's excellent, you know.
So yeah, I just wanted to play that because I saw that been going in my head like, whoa. So they are it's literally people that's thriving just because they're outside of the world.
All over Africa for sure.
Yeah,
South America.
For sure. And that's an example of the Amazon forest. That's like, whoa, like thriving.
Yeah.
Multiplying.
Yeah. Because they're on code. They don't have no betrayers in the group. They on code. You can only do that with people that's on code.
Isolation
they
is
said
key.
We so on code, we so isolated, we so unified. They said, nah, this, and they doubled their population when most of the world is declining in population.
Yeah, think about that.
That's what the remnant is about. That's the type of on code the remnant is on.
Think about that. So that's why we really suggest you guys just get out of America, come to a place where you can be isolated, where it's land everywhere, where there is a community and a village that will be able to be isolated and just continue to populate.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Do you think South Africa will be led by the DA party? And will that be good for diaspora Israel? The DA party. What's the DA party? Do you mean what's the DA party?
I was about to say, I don't know. I'm not sure. Could you explain what? Yeah.
South Africa, for me, for us, is too similar to America. I don't particularly take to Elon Musk. I think it's good to be in the SADC region that includes South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, Seychelles, Mauritius, Malawi, Zambia. Am I missing anybody? I think that's in Angola. I think it's good to be in the region as a whole because South Africa is a major player for distribution of juices, produce. South Africa pretty much takes care of the SADC region, but I would not want to be in proximity in the territory of South Africa, just for our own reasons of literally what we talk about. We want to be somewhat disconnected from these superpowers, so to speak. Like we don't want to live in a world superpower. Mm-hmm. For our family, in particularly, Democratic Alliance Party of them people. Maybe I'm really not sure. The Democratic Alliance for South Africa, possibly. I mean, I definitely think there's going to be some changes happening in South Africa between the relationships between South Africa and America. More so from the standpoint of South Africa could have a bit of pull and power over America because America is no longer going to be a superpower. Mm-hmm. Just in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see these BRICS nations continue to rise. By the way, with the BRICS nations rising, it's good to invest in them, but not be literally in them. Meaning I would not live in Brazil. I would not live in Russia. I would not live in India. I would not live in China. I would not necessarily live in South Africa. Why? Because anytime you deal with living in that new world order, that new world superpower, it's just like going back into captivity again, essentially. It's like a recipe for super uber control. It's like I'd rather live somewhere that nobody's really heard about. I'd rather live somewhere, maybe I don't speak the native language. That's an advantage because I don't want to be connected to too many systems like that. Yeah. I really want to be free. We want to be free people that live freely. We don't have all of these weird controlling principalities that are just odd. You find that a lot with smaller African nations. You find that a lot with island African nations, island South American nations, right? Mm-hmm. That don't have all of this control and power that people get money hungry over, especially the way that prophecy lines up beyond the destruction of the West. There's also prophecy that Asia, according to the book of Esdras, y'all gonna have to say this on your own. We're not gonna read the whole book of Esdras, ESDRAS, but Asia is going to be the next world superpower. How do we know? Because the book of Esdras says it. Even the Ethiopian scrolls say it. Everybody knows that Asia is going to be the next world superpower. But that does not mean I want to go live in the capital city of the next world superpower. I would like to invest and divest and acquire property, run what we run and call it a day, and live in lesser, quote unquote, countries that don't have all of these control aspects and all these things. Living in a country that's fertile. For us, we would never live in a non-fertile country. I don't want to have to be dependent on these superpowers, whether it's BRICS or whether it's Western. I don't want to have to be dependent on either superpower. I would like to be in a place that's fruitful. Like when we look outside of our house, we live in an extremely fruitful village town. The whole country itself is fruitful. Waterfall. It's just like, man, we looked at a house the other day, mango trees everywhere, lemongrass everywhere. I want to live in a place that has that proximity to natural abundance. These are the things that we consider when we look at living in certain territories, investing in certain territories. Because we don't have any plans of doing the whole American control scheme again. Because BRICS, it's going to turn into that. So leverage it, diversify, but also understand that's what it's going to turn into. They want to be the next America. That's why they're hacking these things to see, okay, how can we be the next America and acquire more power than them?
Yeah.
That's why it says Revelations 12, the land shall open for the woman. The land, like the dirt, the ground, the land, the fertile soil. From a spiritual standpoint as well, it just makes sense to be in a fertile place, right?
The sooner the better. Because you just gotta get used to the land. You can't just pop over here and think that you know what you're doing. You really got to get used to it. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Kevin Lips, yeah. People don't understand how crafty the British and Vatican are, but they're winning. Absolutely. Most of the countries around the world have Freemasonic lodges that work together regardless of what nation they win. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. The New World Order is primarily a European Asian superpower broken up into unions across the world. That's a fact. Absolutely. That's 100% a fact. This is why history is so important, because the way that, like you said, the ancient Roman Empire, the Vatican, all these people move is that they don't necessarily anymore have to be the complete face, but these different players are going to start to come into play, and they're forming those Eurasian ties again like they did in ancient times. Europeans and Asians have always had ties. That's where the term Eurasian comes from, right? They're in very close proximity. When you look at China and Russia, very close in proximity. When you look at Eastern Europe, very close in proximity to Mongolia, India, right? So these are people, according to Psalms 83, that have conspired together. And that's why the remnant just needs to opt out, find your little place in Africa or your couple places. You know, we have a couple places in Africa. We don't just have just one because we have 5 children, right? So we have a big lineage to diversify with, but find your couple places that you're like, okay, cool. I have tribal connections here. I know these people in this network. I have land in this network. Great. I have investments in this network. Fantastic. How do you expect any country to be free when you have Freemasons and other secret societies that influence all nations regardless of geopolitics? To an extent. So the countries that are free are the nations that have the least amounts of these Freemason societies. Smaller countries. Countries that people don't think of. Countries like what we were just talking about with the Amazon rainforest, where you could be off somewhere and nobody really cares, and you're just living your life because they're not world superpowers. Anytime you have world superpowers and their allies, that's where the bulk of the Freemasons are going to be. Anytime you have colonizer areas, a lot of places in East Africa that are colonizer hotspots, where you will have segments of territory devoted to colonizers and Freemason societies. That's obviously not a place that's free from that type of impact.
Mhm.
But with that being said, a lot of African countries, just to be quite honest, are 4 to 5 times bigger than what they look like. Freemasons aren't Yah. They don't rule everything.
Yeah.
They attempt to, but they just don't. There's just no human way
What's your
that
belief
a
and
human
trust in?
or a
Yeah.
robot can rule the entire world, no matter how much they try.
Yeah.
It's just not possible, because the promise still stands. He says, okay, and I'm still going to have a place for the remnant, and I'm still going to be a wall of fire beyond them and behind them and before them, and I'm still going to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. She will be unwalled, meaning he has designated hotspots on the earth up in his heavenly kingdom on his heavenly map. He's like, oh, yep, I can send my children that hotspot because he owns it.
Mhm.
We give Freemasons and all these societies too much power. These folks, they try to get power, but we have
That's
more
true.
power than them. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I have more power living in me than 1,000 Freemason societies put together, because greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's look, I think we should end it right there. Because that's the truth right there. Like, really, because people just give too much power to this world. Like, and it's not
The
look,
societies and
like
things.
what is it? Like, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's like when people talk about witchcraft and stuff like that. And it's like, what is really witchcraft? It's only if you accept it. And like, why are you even accepting it? So it's no power in that. But yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely why people should travel. Once you travel Africa and you not only go to one country, but you spend time in multiple countries, you start to see, oh, y'all couldn't control the world if y'all tried. And your population's declining. Oh, you couldn't control nothing if you tried.
Mhm.
Right? That's what the Tower of Babel was all about, right? Control. They wanted to, the Hamitic nations at that time, the Cushitic nations, wanted to build a tower basically to control and say, oh, we can exalt ourselves. And what the Most High do? He sent arrows and scattered them and changed the language. It's that simple. The Most High, he can flick a switch real quick. All their operations cease from functioning. Boom. Most High does it. He does it quick, and he don't even do it for our sake. He does it for his name. He says, at this rate, it's not even about y'all, but it's about my name. Y'all not about to screw up my creation. Y'all not about to screw up the things that I've already written, because he's like, I can't be a liar. The great I am is like, I can't lie. So prophecy has to unfold the way it's going to unfold. Promises have to stand the way they're going to stand. And the people that are able to receive it are going to get the increase from it and be blessed by it, while the world is in turmoil in the next world system.
Hallelujah.
Any other questions? This has been a wonderful live. This breaking news is crazy. Facts, I think giving the most high powers to these principalities is modern day idol worship. For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yep. It definitely benefits our people to understand his power, because it's the only power in the earth. I mean, when you got all these other idols, all these other societies, it's not, they can't really do much.
Yeah.
Especially when Yahusha said, greater works than these shall you do. Like, you raised the dead, sir. He's like, oh, you're going to do greater. Now you start to see why greater is necessary, when we're going to start to see the return of fallen ones. Some of these different things that are happening with technology. Of course, you're going to have to do greater works if you're able to bestow that power.
Mm-hmm.
Tim says you should all look into Elon Musk's Starlink satellites. They're allegedly causing all the drone and orb coverage. Wow. That's interesting. We'll look into it.
Yeah, it's so much stuff that we don't know. But yeah.
The struggle. The Amish in America don't participate for the most part. So exceptions, right? Exactly. They're a great example of an exception.
Yeah. Isolation is key. You have to be set apart in these last days, like you really do. And what does that really look like? Like that's what that's the question that you have to ask yourself. What does set apartness look like? Really?
Yoel Yasharala says, I was in South Africa last week to look at the land I purchased for our home. That's awesome. We sold everything. It's time for us to relocate, and you should too. Facts. It's the best time. It's even more pertinent to relocate now than it was in 2020. Facts. It just is. It's just time.
It is time.
I think that's it for this video, family. Thank you for tuning in. Like, share, comment, subscribe, be blessed. Make sure y'all reading your scriptures so you can be on code with the Most High. And like you said, stay, what's that word? Stay isolated.
Be set apart.
Yeah, be set apart.
Make sure you fast and pray, and just get rid of your idols. Idol worship is like everywhere. So make sure you seek peace, seek the Most High's word, allow the Most High's word to increase in you and decrease of this world. So thanks for tuning in, guys. We will talk to you guys in the next video. Shalom, shalom.